Good afternoon. I'd like to call the work session to order. First item on the agenda is Executive Airport and Economic Development. Mr. Manager.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, at this time I'd like to call Mr. Greg Burke, Director of Economic Development, to the podium to provide a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And good afternoon, Vice Mayor and council members. It's a pleasure to be before you. I think this is my second official time before you since we've made the transition with our interim position. So it's a pleasure to provide you an update on how last year ended up. And obviously this is supposed to be the third quarter report. And so the focus will be on the fourth quarter, as you might expect. But I'm going to interweave with that, since it was the last quarter of the year, information regarding just how the whole year looked as a result of some of the activity that you're going to see. We'll start, as some of you may have been familiar, with the airport to give you an idea of just what's happened with the airport. Just a broad overview, in particular for those of you that don't keep track. 58 T hangars there, 7 of our box hangars, all 100% leased. So as we go through this quick overview, keep in mind the obvious, we're all wearing masks. These things that you're hearing happened during this whole pandemic. 100% leased through the year. As a heads up, on your agenda already, you've probably had a chance to review it. You're going to have a motion in the main session regarding 2 of the hangars, Hangar 7 and Hangar 9, and actually adjacent to Hangar 9, a ground lease ordinance that'll be before you for consideration for public hearing in the March, I believe it's March 3rd meeting. So we just wanted to give you a little heads up on just where they're located. You'll hear more about this as we move forward. A little bit on, so what's happened at the airport? Typical things, we're selling fuel, so many gallons, and when you look at the numbers, we compare 2019 to 2020. For the last quarter, things picked up. When you look at the total numbers for the year, as I show you, overall, the amount of gas sold and the revenue from that obviously was down from the previous year, but the last quarter picked up a little bit despite the rest of the year, despite COVID. So that's encouraging as we move forward. Regarding corporate activity there, we've got 9 corporate aircraft at the airport and a variety of customers. And as I looked at these slides, and of course, first thing I did was look at previous reports and the visitors that we get. And most of the visitors you see are those that come on a regular basis. But I'd like to highlight, for the first time, we're seeing Amazon. I won't speak to all the reasons they come and go. We don't get all that information, but it's encouraging to see that kind of activity from the businesses that we have here. Regarding capital updates themselves, 3 projects that are now either well underway or they've got a design plan in place. The first being, of course, the rehab of the apron, keeping that in shape. You've got plans out for bid on replacing this shelter. We used to store the float there, and it's becoming more and more difficult, as you can see just from the visual itself. And then lastly, as we look way down the road and we think about, wouldn't it be nice to be able to build a few more hangars? Well, you got to bring some services in, so we have a water line under design to bring into this particular area and hopefully get the opportunity to get some more hangars built. And in short, that's the airport where instruction is still being conducted. If you're interested in learning to fly, it's never too late. I'll pause there for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any council member have any questions?
Just want to make a comment. It's a little too late for me to learn how to fly. I'll let Mr. Fawcett.
I can help you if you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Byrd.
Hearing none, then we'll move into the economic development side of the department. And as I was preparing this, again, as I said, I looked at the previous presentations to see what was said, and then I looked at, well, what's happened? You know, you take a tour around the city, and you see where development's taking place, and this phrase came to mind. Again, remembering pandemic for all of last year and all of the restrictions on where you can go, what could be open, what couldn't be, and the thought, let's get it done. Because as in the few slides I'm going to show you, that's what I want to leave you with. You know, as if one of the businesses or the many businesses and developers were saying, despite what's going on, let's get it done. So to give you an idea about numbers, particularly in our office, on the left you see the existing industry visits that we always conduct. On average, that's been 40 per month on average. And essentially what, you know, a lot of them, it may be by phone, it may be with social distancing, but we're still staying in touch with our businesses in a variety of ways, a lot of them a little bit different than we've done in the past. On your right-hand side, you see a whole bunch, and this is a test for you to identify all of those particular industries within those circles, because I purposely didn't put those names down there just to give you a test. But of course, from food and beverage on your first top left there with the bottles, you've got medical, you've got advanced manufacturing, retail. Next row, you've got office, you've got warehousing and logistics, advanced technology, and then hospitality. And as you look at the numbers, one for the last quarter, typically in these areas, you see existing business industries slow down. We're getting into the holiday. People aren't doing a lot in that particular year. But when you look at the overall year, you see it still wasn't a bad year when it came to the number of industries. Now, again, some of this has happened with social distancing, some of it with actually communicating via Zoom and all the other. I think I have a half a dozen different applications on my computer for these kinds of meetings. But I want to point out, still with this number, if you think industrial, you got 6, 12, 5, 23, about a third of what we're seeing still is in an area that is our strength, industrial. So that's as is expected, and it didn't turn out to be as bad as it could have been under the circumstances from last year. So to start in northern Suffolk and work our way south, to give you an idea of development that's getting done, as you will, you've seen information at one point or another about the point at Harborview. What you see in this somewhat busy slide are a number of activities. You see road work that has been short of the final coat, ready to go for entering in off of College here. You see part of the roundabout that's been constructed. And then first up, Ryan Homes with 100 townhomes planned for this area is soon to start getting underway. That'll be followed, and it is a little bit of an eye chart even from this distance. You've got Aura at Harborview by Bonaventure, another 300 rentals that'll take place in this area. And then finally, in the office area here, actually mixed-use development area along the entranceway, will be buildings that have this type of image. So if you would go up there, you see, it used to be lots of trees. That's a lot of them been removed, and we're moving forward. So in the year to come, COVID notwithstanding, we should see a lot more development come the next couple of reports that I bring before you. So coming down Harborview a little bit, you look at this Harborview Shopping Center, and the reason I point this out, if I were to show you from a different angle, and I only had so many angles I could get at a short period of time, there were 3 buildings planned, and over time, they've slowly gotten occupied, and now all of the buildings are up. They're getting slowly filled, and again, you're running out of space along Harborview as a result of folks, developers, getting it done, as I have said. Move a little further down. In the lower picture here, several years ago, in fact, it took some time, the original site plan was called the Bob Williams site. It looked like you see here, treed, and just before you left Harborview and got out onto Route 17, finally, after a lot of time, the design's been in for quite a few years. You now have Lakeview Medical Center at Harborview, well under construction, and you see the two users that are planning to go into that space in a partnership. This is an interesting location. If you haven't been along Route 17 to see that many buildings, you would almost think that's got to be a concept. Is that really there? But yes, indeed, I will tell you, all that you see there, including 7-Eleven, not only on this side of 17, but there's a 7-Eleven on the other side of 17 right across from it. So they obviously feel like the traffic flow is good because they've placed 7-Elevens on both sides of the highway to make life easy for folks to patronize that location. But what you're seeing here at Bridgeport are a number of restaurants that have already located, and they're building out in different stages, and then a number of other uses here on the right-hand side. And I'm pointing, but I'm not getting my pointer to right. But on the lower right-hand side, you see a number of the different types of amenities that are available. So it continues to build out. Apartments are getting filled up, and it's becoming quite an attraction on Route 17. Coming down a little further, just up the street from us, it's interesting how quick this particular car wash has gotten itself prepped. A recent picture, like just a few days ago, crane out front, land's cleared, they're ready to break ground. I looked, and you're probably familiar with our pre-submittal meetings we have every Friday, so I was looking for a diagram or something quick. This pre-submittal for this project was December 18th, and it's gone through the pre-submittal. Didn't have to rezone, so it didn't get slowed down, but they're ready to move forward. We've got a similar car wash up in northern Suffolk, and this one will look similar to that here in the next months to come. My goodness. No guess what this particular facility is. Probably the last time you saw it, it was a shell, a skeleton. You saw a bunch of, you might have seen just the side walls that were built, but this is what a 3.5 million square foot, 4.5 to 5.5 story redistribution, in this case, fulfillment center looks like. It's clearly from our vantage point, nearly finished from the external aspects. A lot of work to be done when it comes to the robotics and so forth that you've probably been introduced to previously, but quite a massive building to take a look at, and it's moved quite a ways down the road. To the south of central Suffolk, Massimo Zanetti, of course, a name that you know very well here in Suffolk. They're planning on the location, again, my point, there we go. They're planning on this location, and behind it is the speculative building. Gosh, when's the last time you heard us mention the construction of a speculative building? It's been quite a number of years, right before the, probably about 4 or 5 years since we built there on Virginia Regional area. So another spec building. It's planned right here, and you can see they're going to build Massimo's first. You see the side walls in this particular picture coming up. So they're moving along. And as the next report will show, they're not done yet, but I am. So may I answer any other questions you may have?
Thank you, Greg. Any council member have any questions?
I just, go ahead.
Councilman,
You can drive back to my the building itself. The building is, that's, how old is that here?
It's a few weeks old.
Yeah, it's up.
Yeah.
Today when I was coming into council meeting, backed up all the way to the bypass, because they got one lane it looks good.
Councilman Fawcett.
Mr. Byrd, thanks for the report. You know, just to take a look at that slide that you presented today was pretty awesome. Just how much we've done in just a few months. Even though some of this stuff has been coming out of the ground probably for a few years, it's now really starting to come to light. Yes, the Amazon is monstrous. I mean, I expect they're going to move along because they seem like they're working around the clock there almost, and I know they're building up and running. And Bridgeport is really blown up. I mean, you know, there's still a couple more buildings to come out of the ground there yet that haven't come up.
Exactly, too, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
Yes.
that are going to be coming. And if you haven't had a chance to go over to Knott's Creek Coffee Shop, go over there and grab you something. That's a nice little spot. It's a good little place in the back where you can have a little meeting with somebody if you'd like and have something to eat, coffee or whatever you'd like. So they've done a good job. And then, you know, Brian and Mullins and his wife putting that Italian restaurant on the corner opposite of the Mexican restaurant, which is, I guess, Armadillo's or whatever the name is that they call it. That should be coming up after the Easter holiday. So there's a lot going on up there in that end of town. So people want a little change of to see some things. That's a place to go look at right now. And it's a little exciting what's going to happen on College Drive back there, and that's going to be another convenient service most anybody that wants anything. So I think we've done really well so far, and hopefully we can continue to keep that push going and keep coming these, you know, getting these businesses to come to Suffolk, and we just look forward to see what's next.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Does the council member have any comment? Greg, just a couple of questions. On the car wash on Main Street, where is that going to be located?
Right behind the, Governor Moses.
Green. Zeros.
Right behind Zeros, right. I was thinking
Behind
sub
Zero-
shop, but it says it's not.
Zero
It's
Sub.
right behind Zeros, essentially adjacent to Kroger's.
Okay, in that field right by the cemetery.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's interesting, the name, if you look up the name of that, you know, our companies like to give familiar names to the area, and this one's Green
Clean.
All right.
Holly Landing, or Holly Lawn LLC, and it just gives you an interesting feeling when you read that. Car wash right by the cemetery, but
All right. There's a lot of activities going on up in the northern part there, and I was looking at the 7-Eleven you was talking about, the one, and I wondered whether they're going to keep both of them. But what you were saying, I've never seen a 7-Eleven usually build one right across from each other, but evidently business is really booming in order to do that. So that's planners, which you might not want to talk about, might not have any more information on it. Have you heard anything else about planners being sold and what might be taking effect anywhere here in employment or anything here in the city?
well, what we've heard officially
Go ahead.
What we've heard officially is that for the employees here, and I'm going to paraphrase, but for the employees here, and this is coming from outside of the area of Planners Organization, their positions are solid. No issues for them. They're getting their same contracts with the new company, and those kinds of things. So, not hearing anything negative when it comes to employment, or worse, you know, the plant possibly moving into some other type of disposition. None of that's been provided at this point. It just seems like business as usual. And again, you likely keep the same name. It's easier than trying to rename it, but not even that's been mentioned. So,
Thank you. I just had, unless you had something you wanted to add, Al.
No, that's
Okay.
what I'd heard.
Because, you know, Planner's been here all these years in many jobs, and I'd hate to see it be moved totally and people lose their jobs and all that, plus the symptom of the peanut. So I hope we can work with them to try to keep them on board here in the city, so I'm sure you will. Okay? Nothing else, we'll go to our next item, the bridge project preview update. Mr. Manager?
Yes, Vice Mayor and members of council. L.J. Hanson, Director of Public Works, going to provide the staff report on the bridges projects and update on those 4 projects.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. It's my pleasure to give you a little update on some bridge projects that we have coming up. Most of these are sure to cause some element of traffic disruption, and I want to make sure that you had some understanding of what they are, what's going on, and how long it's going to take. The first project I wanted to talk to you about is the Wilroy Road Bridge project. You're all very familiar with this. Came to you earlier in the year, told you we'd be wrapped up, or earlier last year, told you we'd be wrapped up by Thanksgiving, and we were in fact open on Thanksgiving. But I also told you there'd be some follow-up work, and so today I'm here to talk to you about a little bit about that follow-up work. If you look at this picture, this is at the bridge, so coming from 58 Bypass, headed south on Wilroy Road. And if you notice, the chevrons on the right-hand side kind of show a narrowing in the road, and the bridge guardrail sticks out towards the road. This is not a desirable circumstance, but this is a kind of a stopgap measure that we had to take at the time. There's an HRSD force main that's under the ditch there, and there's also a drainage pipe that's under the ditch. Trying to get the guardrail to work as it was designed originally was not able to be done in the field. We had a deadline to get the road open. We took the stopgap measures to get us there, and then we went back and did a rework on some design of how we're going to fix that and how we're going to widen that out so that when the road is completed, it'll be a much smoother transition. The road is perfectly safe today. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not our preferred circumstance, and the element of risk is a little bit high having the end of the guardrail stick into the pavement the way that it does. What they're going to do is they're going to have to pour some concrete adjacent to the bridge. It's called a moment slab, and that gives it some strength. So we'll have to take the existing guardrail out. That will mean that we'll have to put some barricades in place. There will be some lane disruptions and that type of thing. For the most part, we believe that single lane closures will be relegated to day-long for multiple days in a row. But there may be a couple of times when we have to have the road lane closed overnight. There will be no total closures. There will be lane closures, but there will be no total closures with this work. As a result of trying to keep our maintenance of traffic so that there's no total closures, it's going to take us a little bit longer, but we think that that's the right move. We know the pain that it caused everybody when we had the road closed last time. This will amount to some traffic disruptions, but no overall major issues like we saw before. So I described a little bit about what that guardrail parapet work is. What's going to wind up happening is when they bring that around, it'll tie into the hillside. It'll be a much cleaner, safer rework. As I mentioned, there'll be some lane closures, some extended, but no anticipated roadway closures. We're currently working with our contractors to figure out exactly how we're going to get this done. From a time standpoint, we want to make sure that we get it done as quickly as we can, that we have all the equipment and everything, all the materials we need, so that there's no delays in the middle. But we're anticipating starting March, April time frame, and we're expecting it to last about 6 to 8 weeks. One thing I will say is, as part of this work, we also intend to fix some of the asphalt there. We know it's not as smooth as we'd like it to. Again, going back to the time of year that we were wrapping up construction. If you recall, we had gone through hurricane, tornado, rain event. So we know the pavement's not to the standard that we'd like to have. That'll be wrapped up as part of this as well. So upon completion, this bridge will be done. Next bridge I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is the Lake Cohoon Bridge location. This is located over here on Holland Road, right by Roy and Ricky's Catering. From Holland Road, head north on Lake Cohoon, it's the flyover that goes over the CSX rail. I thought you might appreciate this. This is our bridge inspector doing an inspection, and that's a snoop that actually the guy gets in the bucket and goes out over the bridge and gets up underneath. Well, it's kind of impressive in this. I don't think I'd want to do this on the Mills Godwin. I don't think you could get me in that thing. But That's the bridge that we're talking about. As you're probably aware, if you've traveled in this direction lately, the steel plate has been in place for a while. There is a significant amount of degradation to the bridge from when it was just due to its age and the conditions that it sits in. The bridge was originally built in 1962. So our scope of work for this bridge, as it is structurally deficient, we're going to do a complete replacement of the deck and superstructure. That does not include the substructure. So the pilings and everything that it's sitting on, that all gets to stay. There'll be some touch-ups, some paint and that type of thing, but that gets to stay. But we will be taking the complete deck and everything off and replacing it. That will it will necessitate a complete roadway closure, and detours will be posted. But that does require a complete, going around that location. Schedule should begin again about March, April here, time frame, about another month from now. And the duration of work is expected to be about 10 months. We've hired our contractor. Everything's in place. We've had some initial talks with them. We're expecting to be open by the end of the year, but until we get started on this one, I can't say that with absolute certainty, but that is our anticipation. Will be open at the end of the calendar year. Next bridge I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is Carolina Road Bridge location. This bridge is rather nondescript. If you're coming up from Carolina on 32, you may never even know that this bridge is there. It's just one of those bridges that you have to go across. It's north of Cypress Chapel. It goes across Cypress Swamp, so it's in between Cypress Chapel and Babtown. It is kind of the rough spot in the road when you come from Carolina up to Three Black Cats or the airport area. We did some paving from the airport south, and we did some paving from the Carolina border north. There's a segment in the middle, starts about Cypress Chapel to about Babtown, that we did not overlay. And we didn't overlay it because we knew we had this bridge project, and upon completion of the bridge project, we'll go in, we'll finish out all the asphalt, and then 32 will have been completely repaved. The work that we have in store for this is a complete bridge replacement. This is the bridge. Again, like I say, it's rather nondescript. It's not very special, but it is if you're hauling something. Currently, we have some load restrictions, and as 32 is a U.S. highway, that's one that we want to make sure that we always have it as top of condition. It's not that old of a bridge. It's actually built in 1972. Part of the issue is the foundation that the bridge was built on. Obviously, anytime you build a bridge in a wet circumstance, it's always a challenge. But some of the soils, I think, that didn't exactly hold up the way that they should have. And it's not that the bridge itself is in danger of falling down, but rather it's the soils that are back behind the abutments have moved around, and we've had some problems just trying to maintain that. It's caused some cracking and some other issues. Again, this will be a complete bridge replacement. As I talk about roadway detours on this, there'll be a number of detours that are possible. But for trucks, we've been working with Carolina Department of Transportation, and they have agreed that the smart move is to detour all truck traffic from 32 to Route 13. So that will necessitate an increase of truck traffic on Route 13, but we believe that vehicle traffic will have a number of options to get through. It is our intent to not allow truck traffic on Cypress Chapel and those types of roads. We're going to put up as much, and Carolina has been very gracious. They've offered to put up as much signage as we like and to help us enforce it as well. Schedule for this will be starting this summer. Our contractor is not in place for this one, but we're anticipating about 10 months of construction time for this. And the last bridge I want to talk a little bit about will actually be on your agenda tonight as a public hearing. This is the Elwood Road Bridge. It's located obviously on Elwood Road, just north of Glenhaven Road. And it's kind of hard to see. There's not a lot of landmarks to pick out in this map, but it is just north of Glenhaven Road, on the road basically to Carsville. This bridge is steel timber bridge. Very typical for what we see on some of our secondary or tertiary roads. It's been in place for a long time. It's certainly showing signs of its age. Again, it's a structurally deficient bridge that requires a complete replacement. It's been in place since 1962, but obviously steel in a swamp environment doesn't hold up terribly well. And you can imagine after 50-something years, it's time to come down. This also will require a complete roadway closure with detours posted. Our schedule for this likewise is starting in 2021. We think this one will go a little bit faster as it's on a secondary road. We think we can get this one done a little bit faster, about 9 months. Again, we don't have our contractor in place for this, but we're pretty confident based upon some of the other bridges that we've done, similar circumstances, similar type of construction size, that type of thing. We think we'll have it done in about 9 months. And that's the 4 bridges I wanted to tell you about today and what they mean for some detours.
Council members have any questions?
One thing, LJ, on the Wilroy, you're right, that's pretty crazy the way that rail sits. It's almost like it's jumping out at you when you're coming up on it. So we're anticipating partial closure first or a total closure? How are we plan on alternating that traffic to keep it, going to have one lane available at all times? Or how?
Yes, sir. The current northbound lane will be available throughout the duration of the project. We're anticipating that we're going to place some barricades. So as we remove the guardrail, there will be concrete barricades. We'll be able to work behind the barricades most of the time, but not all the time, and there will be lane closures that are needed. When the lane closures are needed, we'll have a flagging operation. If it looks like we are required to have a lane closure that's going to last for an extended period of time, we do have some portable traffic signals in the city that allow us to put up a traffic signal on both sides that operate red, green, blue, so that as somebody approached, when we did the bridge on Wilroy Road north of Progress Road, we used those on Progress and Nansemond Parkway, and it allowed us to control traffic. They're a temporary traffic signal. The speed limit there is still restricted to 35, so ordinarily the road would be 45 miles an hour, but as a result of the condition where the guardrail is in its current condition, and then of course because we still have the construction, it's still maintained at 35 there through that area, so it does make it a little bit safer.
Councilman Johnson.
Just one question. The Lake Cohoon Road Bridge, LJ, we do have one church there. We're dealing with that fairly well, I'm assuming.
Yes, sir. We've reached out to the contractor as soon as they were selected. We asked them to, I believe it's Hillcrest.
Missouri Baptist?
Missouri Baptist, I'm sorry, thank you. Missouri Baptist, and we asked them to reach out and talk to the pastor, and he has done.
He's been very nice about it, but he is a little concerned, as he should be.
As he should be, but
So.
Honestly, there's just no other way. The bridge has got to get replaced.
Sure. And they need the bridge, they know that, but we need to recognize that they're there.
And our contractor actually talked to them about using some of their land as laydown or staging area, and they've been very gracious.
Very good, thank you.
Going back to the Wilroy, I had a number, I'm glad you're fixing the asphalt, because I've had 2 or 3 engineers call me and say that asphalt's not right and what have you, and it's glad that I can go back to them and say, that was sort of temporary, we're going to get it right and get it fixed. So I appreciate hearing that and y'all taking care of that.
So we noticed it right away.
Good, thank you.
Other question? Not, thank you, LJ.
That finishes the reports for the work session.
Okay, I think we have a motion for a closed session, Madam Clerk.
Item number 1, pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711A8 and A1, consultation with legal counsel employed by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the legal advice of such counsel, and the discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for appointment, and the assignment, appointment, and performance of specific public officers or appointees of the city, specifically the appointments as shown in the attached list for vacancies or term expirations for the Agricultural Advisory Committee, the Early Childhood Development Commission, the Economic Development Authority of the City of Suffolk, the Fine Arts Commission, the Human Services Advisory Board, the Local Board of Building Code Appeals, the Suffolk Redevelopment Housing Authority, the Planning Council, the Tidewater Emergency Medical Services Council, the Wetlands Board, and the Chuckatuck Borough vacancy on the City Council.
Order.
So moved.
Second, Madam Clerk, we call the roll, please.
Councilmember Fawcett,
Yes.
Councilmember Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
The motion is approved by a vote of 5 to 0.
Thank you. We'll be back at 6 o'clock.